The air was thick with excitement at the grand ballroom of the Belmont estate. White roses adorned the walls, soft jazz played in the background, and the scent of lavender candles filled the air. Amelia, the stunning black bride, stood at the center of it all, her diamond-encrusted gown shimmering under the golden chandelier lights. She looked radiant, her natural curls framing her face like a crown. Beside her stood Edward, her groom, a wealthy, successful businessman with sharp blue eyes and a confident demeanor. Their union was the talk of the town, blending two worlds, Edward's old money and Amelia's hard-earned success as an author and activist. The guests buzzed with whispers as they took their seats, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. As the ceremony began, Amelia noticed Edward's grip on her hand was unusually tight. His smile didn't reach his eyes. She brushed it off as nerves, but the tension was palpable. When they exchanged vows, Edward's voice faltered and his eyes darted to a group of his family members in the front row. Amelia followed his gaze and saw Edward's mother, Evelyn, scowling. Her disapproval had been evident from the start. Evelyn had made no secret of her disdain for Amelia, muttering about traditions and purity of lineage at every opportunity. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the applause was tepid, particularly from Edward's side. Evelyn barely clapped. The reception started with a hint of awkwardness. Edward's friends and family stayed clustered together, throwing Amelia disdainful glances. But Amelia, ever graceful, ignored them and danced with Edward, trying to ease his visible discomfort. During the toasts, one of Edward's old friends, Richard, slurred out a speech. To Edward, who finally tied the knot, though we never thought he'd settle for someone so different. Laughter erupted from Edward's side of the room. Amelia froze, her cheeks burning. Edward didn't defend her. Instead, he looked away, fiddling with his champagne flute. As the night wore on, tension escalated. Edward began drinking heavily, his usually composed demeanor unraveling. When Amelia approached him during dinner, whispering, "Are you okay?" Edward snapped, "I'm fine, Amelia. Stop smothering me." His voice was loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Gasps rippled through the room. Amelia bit her lip, mortified. She walked away, but the unease in her chest grew. Later that evening, as the couple prepared for the first dance, Edward's mother approached him. She hissed something in his ear, her face twisted in anger. Whatever she said lit a fire in Edward. As Amelia reached out to take his hand for their dance, Edward yanked it away. "You think you can just waltz into my world and everything will be fine?" he spat. Amelia's jaw dropped. "Edward, what are you talking about?" His voice rose, drawing the attention of every guest. This was a mistake." He gestured around the room. "You don't belong here." Before Amelia could respond, Edward's anger boiled over. He raised his hand and slapped her. The crack of the impact silenced the room. Amelia stumbled back, clutching her cheek, tears welling in her eyes. Gasps and murmurs erupted from the crowd, but before anyone could react further, a commanding voice rang out. "Enough!" It was Mr. Jameson, Amelia's mentor and a prominent civil rights leader. He strode to the center of the room, his presence as commanding as a lion. "You dare lay a hand on this woman?" Jameson's voice thundered. "This incredible, accomplished woman who has done nothing but bring light into your life?" Edward froze, his face pale. Jameson turned to the crowd. "This is what happens when hate and prejudice go unchecked. When we let old traditions blind us to what truly matters, love and respect." The guests, particularly those on Amelia's side, began clapping and shouting words of support. Some of Edward's friends even looked ashamed, their laughter from earlier now replaced with awkward silence. Amelia, despite the pain, stood tall. "You're right, Mr. Jameson, and I won't stand for it any longer." She removed her wedding ring and tossed it at Edward's feet. "You may have married me today, but you don't deserve me. I'm done." The crowd erupted in cheers. As Amelia turned to leave, Edward's voice cracked through the air. "Wait! Amelia, I didn't mean it!" She spun around, her face a mixture of defiance and heartbreak. "You didn't mean it? You humiliated me, struck me, and let your prejudice guide you. Don't pretend this wasn't who you are." Edward faltered, looking to his mother for support, but Evelyn remained silent, her face a mask of icy disdain. Amelia walked to the center of the room, her head high despite the tears streaming down her face. To everyone here who watched this happen, this is your moment to reflect. When you let hatred simmer, it spills over like this. Edward's actions aren't just his. They're a reflection of a system that allows this kind of behavior to thrive. I deserve better. We all do. The guests murmured, some applauding, while others sat in uncomfortable silence. As Amelia began to leave, her best friend Layla rushed to her side, holding her hand tightly. "You're not walking out alone, Amelia. We're all here for you." Layla's words prompted others to rise from their seats. A group of Amelia's family and friends followed her out of the ballroom, their unity a striking contrast to the fractured crowd Edward was left with. Inside the ballroom, Edward sank into a chair, his head in his hands. His friends stared at him in shock, the weight of what had transpired finally sinking in. "You've lost her, man," Richard muttered, shaking his head. Edward looked up, his eyes filled with regret. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I was under so much pressure. My family, the expectations." Evelyn scoffed. "Stop blaming me, Edward. You're the one who couldn't stand up for your own choices." For the first time, Edward looked at his mother with resentment. "You're right, and maybe you're part of the problem. But this is all on me." Outside, Amelia took a deep breath, the cold night air grounding her. Layla draped a shawl over her shoulders. "You okay?" Amelia nodded, though her voice was shaky. "I will be. I won't let this define me." A week later, Edward showed up unannounced at one of Amelia's book signings. He looked disheveled, his usual confident air replaced with humility. "Amelia," he began, his voice trembling, "I know I'm the last person you want to see, but I need to apologize publicly for what I did. I was wrong in every way. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I ruined it." The crowd at the signing fell silent, their eyes fixed on Amelia. She regarded him coolly. "Edward, I accept your apology, but forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. You have a lot of work to do to become the man you pretend to be. I hope you find the courage to do it." Her words stung, but Edward nodded. "I'll spend the rest of my life making amends." Months later, Amelia's life had transformed. She started a nonprofit organization supporting victims of domestic abuse and educating communities about the dangers of prejudice. Her story became a symbol of resilience, inspiring countless people to stand up for themselves. At a gala celebrating her nonprofit's success, Amelia took the stage to deliver a speech. "That night, I thought my world had ended, but I realized something powerful. Endings are just beginnings in disguise. We don't have to be defined by the pain others inflict on us. We define ourselves by how we rise." The room erupted in applause as Amelia smiled, her heart full. Edward, watching from a distance, knew he had no place in her new life, but he also knew that her strength had changed him forever. What would you have done if you were in Amelia's shoes? Do you think Edward deserved forgiveness, or was her decision to move on the right one? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more emotional, thought-provoking content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Don't miss out on our next gripping tale.